good news for the Cowboys. They 100% realize the mistakes they've been making when it comes to run defense. But I was looking through a little bit, and my question is, do the Eagles and the Cowboys have the same major flaw? And then is it going to be a fatal flaw? So I decided to kind of we've talked a lot about how crappy the Cowboys' run defense has been, right? Mm-hmm. So the Cowboys have given up the 29th most rushing yards, they are 29th in rushing yards allowed per game, which is bad. That means they're fourth worst. However, the Eagles are 20th in rushing yards allowed per game. And then you take a closer look, rushing yards allowed per attempt. Eagles are 25th. The Cowboys are 26th.
Okay, so they're both bad at it.
So they're both really bad at it. And then I decided to take a further look at what has been the Eagles. I know they only have one loss, but when they get into closer games. Now, the one anomaly in this is Jacksonville. They shut down Jacksonville's run just fine, and that game was still really close. All their other closest games, check this out. Lions, that was a 3-point win. The Eagles gave up 181 yards rushing. Cardinals, 3-point win. They gave up 124 yards rushing. Cowboys, 9-point win. They gave up 134 yards rushing. Commanders, 11-point loss. They gave up 152 yards rushing. So you see that if the Eagles are vulnerable, and they have been fantastic this season, make no mistake about it, they, like the Cowboys, are also vulnerable in terms of stopping the run. So my question for both teams then is, do you think this could be a fatal flaw, especially when there's teams like San Francisco on the horizon, or if you think it's going to end up being Minnesota, whoever the NFC team of choice is?
Yeah, I think one of the things the Eagles and the Cowboys, honestly, Cowboys didn't do it so much with Cooper, I believe, but the big explosive downfield plays, he did get a few here and there, but they relied on their run so much that it really did shorten a game and gave the Cowboys in with the Cooper Rush group, it was best possible chance to win late in a game. Hey, if we can get the ball back late in the game, our defense has done its job. We have an opportunity to do something with a lead here. The Eagles have been playing this very explosive pass game, downfield attack, in addition to their ability to run for big yards. And if teams are able to eliminate some of that downfield attack, which they've shown that is a possibility, it just they got to kind of figure out some of that RPO stuff that's going on early in a game and kind of get used to it. But if they can do that and you are able to give up these types of plays throughout the game, then that is going to be a problem for them in the playoffs. We saw it happen to the Cowboys last year.
And especially I think the Cowboys can be a team that can push the pace running the ball. Now, that doesn't fix our run defense whatsoever, and we're still working on that. Obviously, Minnesota will be a good test, but I think the Cowboys could be one of those matchups where they can attack the Eagles by running the ball. To go along with all of that, I was reading an article that I was kind of intrigued by is, do you think it's good for the Eagles to have lost? There was once a coach I talked to that won multiple high school state championships, and he thinks no loss is a good loss. He goes, I could teach them the exact same things even if we win. And so I was always like, okay.
We also talked to a coach once that his team was undefeated going into the playoffs and through the playoffs until they came up against the team that beat them the season before in the playoffs. And they lost one game out of the 3-game series, and he said, best thing that could have happened to us.
Yeah.
We needed to lose that so we can realize.
And so I wonder with the Eagles, there will be no more questions this year about can you go undefeated. Do you think this is the broader scheme? This is good because I go back to Jalen Hurts when he was like, no, I've been 8-0 before, and we lost the national championship. And so do you think this can give them a new level of focus or refocus or whatever to still get the number 1 seed and they hope go to the Super Bowl?
I don't know, Mike. They lost to Washington, and Washington gave everything that they had in that game, and they still put a lot of points on the board, like the Eagles did. So I think that the Eagles still feel pretty confident in their ability to score. It's not like this was one of those where they were shut down and they were like, oh, crap, is the blueprint out on our team right now? So that's kind of where I am with that, is I don't know that it's one of those moments that's like, hey, this has galvanized us, because they still have that confidence to go through with it.
Yeah, I think watching some of that Monday night game, the reason they lost is all of a sudden they turned over the ball.
More than they had the entire season in that one game.
I mean, there's other things that happened. Obviously, really stupid play by their veteran defensive end, Graham, at the end of the game. They were going to get the ball back. Were they going to score a touchdown? Probably not, but at least you'd have given yourself a chance. I think that the Eagles, like all the teams in the NFC that are going to make the playoffs, are good, not great. The Eagles can be beat. And the one thing when we talk about, you're talking about the fatal flaw of the Eagles / the Cowboys being the run defense. Somebody's going to overcome it because there's not a great quarterback in the NFC. Tom Brady's past his prime. Aaron Rodgers right now doesn't even look like he's going to make the playoffs, and I don't know if he has the weapons to look as good as he can. And so you look at Jalen Hurts. I'll put him in good quarterback category. I think people need to realize I had him in horrible quarterback category. So I've elevated him from horrible to below average to good, but not great or elite, but he's good. Dak is good. Kirk Cousins is good. In a weird way, Jimmy Garoppolo can be good at best, probably more average than good. And so you just start looking at the contenders. Geno Smith, what in the world happened? But, I mean, he might have elevated himself to average to good this year. There's not the quarterback situation where if you throw Joe Burrow into the mix or like Lamar Jackson, whatever you think of him, or if you throw, obviously, Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, all of a sudden you throw him into this mix of teams that are going to make it. You're like, man, he's by far the best quarterback. All the best quarterbacks are all in the AFC. So it's going to be interesting. Somebody's going to overcome this. And there's going to be a quarterback most likely in the Super Bowl from the NFC that people usually wouldn't consider an elite quarterback. He might get that status because he made the Super Bowl, and it's just one game. Anything can happen in that game. But I do think it will be the Cowboys or the Eagles' fatal flaw. But I think there's also a decent chance one of those teams makes the Super Bowl. So then is it a fatal flaw if you make the Super Bowl?
I guess not. Yeah, because if you lose in the Super Bowl, I'm like, well, you know, because everyone talked about Kansas City's offensive line a couple years back.
And Cincinnati last year.
Yeah, and I
ended up beating them in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely, but I do wonder if you made it to the Super Bowl, if you're like, I mean, it wasn't so fatal that we couldn't make it this far. And then, by the way, I don't know how you feel about this tradition, but Larry Zonka did take to Twitter to give a toast to the Washington Commanders for defeating Philadelphia and knocking off their undefeated record.
Knows how to use Twitter? That's awesome.
Or
that's really cool.
Or whoever took the picture for him posted it.
Yeah,
I
wonder how many people are still alive from that team. There can't be many.
Yeah, because it was 50. I mean, it was 50 years ago. So you got to think most of them are about 80
70 to 80 years old. I mean, I'm just saying.
I have no idea.
Half? Would you say more than half of the players are still alive from that team?
Well, I think half feels like a decent, because you're talking about people that are probably 72 to 85-ish.
Yeah.
So
come on, Miami Herald. I don't want to buy a subscription to this. I just want to know how many in the
Prince
story.
is dying. Help them out, Corey.
Come on.